Thank you, Alex. Well, thank you, Rod, and welcome everybody. I'd just like to share a quick story by way of some sort of setting a context for the research that Patrick and Harrison will be sharing today. GCSE had done in the past a series of census reports on sustainability education. And when we really focused on this Pathways Toward Accreditation project in earnest, we started by going back to those census reports and looking at the story that they tell. So this is the story of sustainability education. In 2006, we have the first sustainability degree program at ASU. By 2008, there were 13 such programs. 2012, 141, now at 114 different institutions. By 2018, there were 440 sustainability degree programs. And today, we really actually don't know. The ASHE database, the ASHE Community Hub, remains the best source right now for sustainability degree programs. It's not perfect because it's an opt-in. So we don't really know about programs that aren't opting in to report their degree program there, or maybe aren't participating in ASHE. So this is part of what we were curious about. So that number on the ASHE Hub, looking for sustainability studies and science programs, certificates and degrees, is about 647. Then there's this parallel story, a second story, which is about interdisciplinary environment and science education programs. This is environmental studies and sciences. And these programs go back way before 2006, and they include lots of institutions, many programs, and this was the story told by Shirley Vincent and her research team, which was a team of interns who looked at the websites and the program listings of every every college offering sustainability degree programs and these IESE programs. So it was a massive research effort. And we're curious about the story. Are these two lines converging? Are they separate but distinct? Where does sustainability curriculum reside? So here's that story, the two parallel lines. And I think what I'm seeing is that the story resides in three places. What we're looking at in this GCSE conversation and the idea of a program level accreditation is really on the sustainability focused degree programs. And we're going to talk about what does that mean? That's that scope and scale conversation. What programs are we talking about? Then there are these embedded programs. Shirley Vincent identified 2,222 specialization degrees. These are inside existing disciplines, things like an architecture degree with an emphasis in sustainability. There are ways in which every discipline is seeking to embed sustainability curriculum. So how are they doing that, and what does that look like? That's part of the story, right? And then, of course, there is our friends at ASHE who really focus on that sustainability across the curriculum. That's what's counted in STARS, those S-focused courses. And that really focuses on sustainability literacy in the general education curriculum. So this is sort of the story that we were curious about. Where has this story gone sort of post-COVID? Have sustainability programs, are they continuing to thrive and proliferate? Is this line getting steeper? Is it flattening off? There really is no current program census. And this was the task that we set Patrick and Harrison to explore. This is all because students are interested in these degrees. Students want to study sustainability, but they might not know the difference between these different stories of how they might learn about sustainability in the curriculum. It's complicated because it's a paradigm shift. This is the transformation of higher ed to include sustainability. So it's a little bit messy. This is also in the context of the climate crisis, the sustainability skills gap, and the green jobs and greening the economy. It's a very, very big topic, and that's the story. That's the context of the story we're talking about today. Now, we're not the only group interested in this story. The new Green Learning Agenda has also been doing a program census. It's even bigger than our project. They are mapping green learning opportunities, which includes higher ed, but also includes those other industry training programs and so forth. And their part one of their census is coming out on May 17th. And they mapped through a totally different lens. And they were really looking at distribution of these learning opportunities in communities, especially their proximity to disadvantaged communities. So they're looking at sustainability oases and sustainability deserts, where people have access to these different training opportunities to include that justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion aspect that's been also very important to our conversation. So I just wanted to mention the new Green Learning Agenda census. I personally can't wait to compare that census with what Patrick and Harrison are going to share with us. And, we're all working together to continue this story. It's as yet to be written, and we are the ones writing it. You are the ones writing this story in your sustainability programs. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Alex, our program manager, to talk about our Northeastern Co-op program.
Sure, Krista, and I'm going to try to be brief so that we have as much time as possible to hear from our two incredible presenters today, Harrison and Patrick. As you might have gathered, these are two students who are completing their co-opportunity for Northeastern University with GCSE. They've been working with us full-time since January. So I hope that Patrick and Harrison will agree that this internship, this opportunity with GCSE, is not your typical college internship. They aren't getting coffee or making copies. They really have been integral to the work that GCSE is doing with our membership and our communications, and as you'll see today, with sustainability education. We're trying to strive to live up to what has turned out to be a best practice in sustainability ed, which you all know, it's real world experience, it's experiential education. So, again, that's about all that I have. I just want to say we're really proud to have Harrison and Patrick present their work today and to pick up that story that Krista just mentioned, which is about sustainability education in higher ed and what that looks like from the student perspective. So please take it away, Patrick and Harrison.
Thank you, Alex. And thank you, Alex and Krista and GCSE overall for allowing us the opportunity to present to you guys. We are all extremely excited. So yeah, good afternoon, good morning, whatever's applicable. Again, I'm Harrison Freiman, and today I'm joined by Patrick Grady. We are undergraduate students at Northeastern University, where I study political science and environmental studies. And Patrick, what do you study again? Remind me.
I'm studying philosophy with a concentration in law and ethics.
Awesome. And we could not be more excited to join this conversation on how sustainability education continues to evolve with the changing times. So we're presenting with you all today with the aim of raising a fundamental question for a healthy and safe future. That question being, for prospective sustainability students who are interested in the field, what does sustainability ed look like today amongst our nation's higher education institutions? Now, this is a question that we've been interrogating for the past couple of months or so, as we've delved into some pretty heavy qualitative analysis of 100 different schools and their sustainability programs, some of which might be represented by you all here today. And in doing so, we hope to return some insight into how colleges and universities might better prepare or accommodate their hopeful sustainability students with the intent of maximizing and optimizing our sustainability workforce.
So to introduce the project just a little bit more, we wanted to show a map of all of the schools that we looked at. So in red, you have the schools that did not have sustainability programs that we investigated, and in green are the schools that we did investigate that we did find had a sustainability program. So to share a little bit more about how these schools were chosen, Alex and Krista actually ended up picking 80 of the schools. So what they did was pick 30 schools that represented schools that are typically considered active in shaping sustainability education. So they got these from the Times Higher Education Impact Rankings, the HE Stars website, as well as GCSE's own member network. The 50 of the schools were supposed to represent diverse student and institution types in sustainability education. So some examples of these school types would be tribal colleges, HBCUs, HSIs, AAPISIs, and minority serving institutions in general, and as well as community colleges. So as you might be able to tell, there's more than 80 schools. The other 20 schools were selected at random by Harrison and I to add in just an element of randomness. One other thing I wanted to mention was one of the limitations on our research. So for all of these schools, we spent 20 minutes on their website and did a maximum of 6 schools a day. 20 minutes might sound like a lot, might sound like a little, but to investigate all of the things that we investigated, it ended up being not much time.
So again, to reiterate, the purpose of the program census research was to gain a more precise understanding of how higher ed institutions generally correlate and differ in their provision of their sustainability degree programs and the content of said programs. So again, we approached this research from the subjective perspective of upcoming undergrad sustainability students, being that they are the intended audience and consumers of these universities' websites and their programs and the program descriptions. So in asking what sustainability ed looks like today, what was particularly of interest was how these programs can better inform and educate on a collective scale so as to provide consistent and intelligible sustainability degree content to students. So our research involved relatively straightforward website analysis. We navigated each of those 100K schools that Patrick introduced and their programs to gauge the extent of which they make their sustainability programs accessible to prospective students who might be interested in them. So this research was designed to be reflective of the student perspective, and the website analysis that we conducted followed the diagram that you see before you. So engaging what sustainability offerings a school has, a student might start with the more general institution characteristics, those being the institution type, the state and region that the institution's found within, and those on-campus commitments and opportunities for students to get involved with sustainability outside of the classroom. Now, at a more specific level, students are going to look at these specific programs and the characteristics of said programs. So that might start with the program level that they're offered at to see if they're compatible with the degree that the student would like to achieve and the degree level, and the department that that program is housed under. So now what we looked at next as prospective students are the program titles, these being one of the most important key indicators here of a sustainability or a sustainability adjacent, as we'll call them, program. So first, the student is obviously going to look for those explicit sustainability and sustainability studies programs. And if they find that a school does offer those programs, they're going to look at the program descriptions, they're going to look at the keywords, they're going to look at the course descriptions to truly see how those programs line up with their own interests. Now, on the contrary, if a school doesn't offer a sustainability explicit program, which happens to be the majority of the schools that we looked at, a student might turn to more relevant opportunities such as relevant minors, certificates, specializations, or even those adjacent programs, such as environmental studies and sciences, natural resources management, et cetera. And they're going to gauge in the program keywords and course descriptions, again, just how much those programs co-align with the interests and their sustainability interests, and really assess whether or not the program is worth joining as a hopeful sustainability graduate. So in continuing to ask this question, we approach this, next slide, please. Thank you. The culmination of this information could be considered the clarity, or alternatively, the ease of access index ranking that Patrick and I developed for each of these schools. So if a campus sustainability program and involvement was made explicit for the students within their programs and on-campus commitments, then we returned a 1 for these schools. And as you can see, 28 of the 100 schools that we gathered were returned a 1 for the clarity. To continue, a 2 was given to the schools with the sustainability program that might have been a little bit more difficult to find on the website, or to those without an explicit sustainability program, but that may have made their on-campus commitment to sustainability explicitly clear on their website. And these schools constituted the bulk of our research, representing 46 of the 100 that we studied. Lastly, a 3 was returned to the schools that lack sustainability on campus whatsoever. There wasn't an explicit sustainability program, no specification whatsoever, and not really a commitment to be found on the website for those prospective students. So this is just a segment of all of the schools that we navigated and compiled. And asking what asking what sustainability education does truly look like, a researcher like Patrick and I might show you the spreadsheet. Now, this is a pretty complicated account of what sustainability ed looks like, at least from a researcher's perspective. But don't strain your eyes looking through all of this. We'll guide you through some of the key points. Yet I will warn you, and you will see for yourself, nothing here is straightforward. So what seems complicated in data becomes even more complicated from a qualitative perspective, one that a student uses when assessing where their next 4 years might be.
So to assess some of these complications, we could first look at the program titles. This should be simple enough to understand, and as a prospective student, it's the thing that you look at to see whether to judge the merit of a school. So here are some examples of some program titles. These are all program titles that we deemed sustainability programs. So all of these are from schools that we looked at and we decided, yes, these are sustainability programs. As you can see, they go in a slight range. And I do want to clarify, I super apologize. There are a few in here that were not explicitly sustainability degree programs, namely environmental studies. But as you can see, sustainability is far and wide, and these word clouds might help demonstrate a little bit of the confusion as well. As you can see on the right here is a word cloud of all of the sustainability program titles, and on the left here are the sustainability adjacent program titles. One of the biggest things that you might see right away is that in both of the word clouds, the biggest word is environmental. This means that for sustainability program titles, the word environmental is more common than the word sustainable. And you also have the repetition of sustainability versus sustainable, sciences, all of that. There is a lot of confusion and not a lot of consensus among program titles.
So in addition to the program titles that we looked at, another key object of interest here was, were the program keywords, those being the descriptors and indicators of a sustainability program within the program descriptions. Now, this is extremely important because a program description is that key resource here that prospective students use to assess their interests. And making sure that the sustainability content is explicitly communicated to students, it's important that that translates to the program descriptions. So just like the program title slide, we made some word clouds for the keyword slide as well. And in comparing the keywords of the adjacent programs to those of the explicit programs, we can truly see those qualities that might define a sustainability program. Now, within the adjacent programs, there is an undeniable focus on environmental issues, as Patrick mentioned before, yet that focus seems to be much more pragmatic, much more observational, and surface level. Now, these key topics are easily defined, easily taught, and easily understood as explicit, concrete truths. Yet the explicit sustainability programs, however, seem to focus much more on the whys and hows, the layered implications, those that concern the humanities, perspective shifts, intuitive judgment, much more merit in gauging this information. So while the adjacent programs are seemingly more observational in nature, much more STEM-based, much more straightforward, The explicit programs here are much more intuitive, require complex judgment, multifaceted considerations, which is why as researchers, we can say that the word cloud for that seems to be much more vast and encompasses much more words and much more indicators there. So looking at these keywords specifically, one that we found took on a great deal of meaning within these explicit sustainability programs was the word understanding. Now, the definition of the word understanding, particularly within the context of the environment and sustainability, takes on a bit of a different role here. Understanding implies that the issues are much more than just on the surface. They're much more deep-rooted and intuitive. They're not merely factual or simple universal truths, but they're defined by the students engaging the interaction of different systems and different bodies involved within a sustainable environment or sustainable processes. Additionally, often programs descriptions describe these environmental processes and systems as complex, indicating that there's much more involved in these processes. So many of these programs also had keywords that were indicative of a relationship being examined. A relationship between humans and nature or the environment, a relationship between economy and the environment, a relationship between, society and the environment. Oftentimes, an illustration of a relationship being examined was an immediate indicator of a sustainability program. Now, relationship and interaction questions, we can say, address much broader social issues, deeper context and roots than the simple sciences, which, again, is that key differentiation there between the explicit sustainability programs and those adjacent programs. Now, from the surface level keyword research, sustainability is not just about the environment, nature, resources, and energy. It's about interaction, relationships, stewardship, justice, conservation, all of these themes being much more deep-rooted, nuanced, and complex than those within the non-sustainability program keywords. So while many of those typical environmental indicator words are consistent between both the sustainability and non-sustainability programs, as you can see within some overlap between the word clouds, it really just comes down to that nuance of scope and scale of quality and of qualitative assessment and understanding, rather than the simple quantitative or scientific analysis that those adjacent programs imply. So an additional point of interest here that Alex actually brought to our attention were the differences among the CIP codes and the definitions of these programs. Now, Alex, you've become a bit of a CIP expert, we can say, so we would love for you to go ahead and explain this for us.
Of course. So I thought that this was an excellent tie-in to some of the comments that you made on the program titles and sort of like the overlapping words that are used between environmental studies and sciences programs and sustainability programs. In one of our team meetings the other day, we kind of dove into this CIP code definition thing. So this is from College Navigator. CIP stands for Classification of Instructional Programs. And we were trying to figure out, like, is there a solid way that schools that are offering sustainability studies are indicating like that is a sustainability program? It is defining it as a sustainability program, coding it as sustainability. So we looked into the definition of these two highly relevant programs, sustainability studies and environmental studies. Sustainability studies is classified under multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary programs. If you read the definition, though, of sustainability studies, you'll notice, program that focuses on concept of sustainability from an interdisciplinary perspective, and it includes all of these different disciplines that might be incorporated into a sustainability studies curriculum. But then look down below at environmental studies, which has a darn near mirror image definition. There's not a huge distinction between these two programs. There's just kind of a different level of emphasis, maybe like a different lens that's being used to describe sustainability studies programs and environmental studies programs. So this is just a little note that we wanted to add to, add to the conversation about defining sustainability programs versus sustainability adjacent programs, as Harrison and Patrick have described. That's all I've got. I'll pass it back over to you all.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. So let's get into some of these top level takeaways that we found after our research. So first of all, 62 of the 100 schools that we observed did not have a sustainability program, while the remaining 38 did. So as you saw amongst those program titles and keywords word clouds, there is a general lack of consensus that's worth noting amongst these programs.
So to just jump into some of the biggest areas where schools are lacking consensus, one of them is in core competencies. As you'll see, we have a slide upcoming that will demonstrate this a little bit more in detail, but when you go to a school's website or a program's website, you see the values or skills, or just as we put them, core competencies that a program is attempting to teach and what's central to the program. There just isn't a big agreement in what belongs in those core competencies in different colleges' websites, at least as a prospective student. Another thing, and just in that same vein of thinking, the actual definition of sustainability, if offered by schools, it's different. And some schools see it as a tool as an interdisciplinary tool that should be integrated into curriculum that way. Other schools see it value in it standing alone. But it would be helpful as a prospective student to know this is what sustainability is across the board, or at least these are a few different working definitions of sustainability.
And to continue this conversation on where this general lack of consensus lies, we also found as researchers and as prospective students that between the significance of sustainability to the culture of these schools and the virtue of sustainability as placed, central to these schools' values, often differ between these schools, which makes it an extremely, confusing experience for prospective students who are comparing these program descriptions and the general programs of these schools. So cultural significance, particularly being that many of the schools that we looked at were minority serving institutions, were tribal colleges and universities. Oftentimes sustainability is so interwoven into the culture there that it takes more of an understated presence within the curricula at these schools. Now, being that sustainability was made much less explicit there, and again, is more of an inherent thing that's understood by, those within the cultures of these schools, it did become quite confusing as researchers and as students, trying to navigate where sustainability is explicit and, explicitly provided for prospective students, and where sustainability is more of an understood thing that, students or researchers alike can't quite understand. And despite there being endless questions to ask and endless analysis to be done still, our data does point to an apparent lack of consensus, like I mentioned, between the definitions, reporting, descriptions, and curricula across these higher education institutions. Now, this lack of consensus deeply affects a student's ability to locate themselves at these schools, which is extremely important. Students align their values with those of their schools, and it is discouraging, to say the least, to question the fitness of a school on the basis of value alignment or disalignment. Particularly within the field of sustainability, students seek to be change agents in an extremely important and deeply relevant field. And it's important that we see our potential homes for the next 4 or so years to be conducive of that and to facilitate that mode of thought. It's not beneficial to learn about sustainability at a school that doesn't walk the walk when it comes to sustainability. So without an evident commitment to sustainability, the value misalignment could lead to cognitive dissonance within what the student is learning and what the student is doing, which is a huge impact that is preferable to be resolved before a student enters, those next 4 years of their lives. So continuing here, we're going to walk you through some of the weirdness and some of the different approaches to sustainability and sustainability ed that we found in our research. Different schools take different approaches, which leads to different interpretations and different definitions of sustainability. So you'll find that these different schools have different tools for defining sustainability, as Patrick mentioned earlier, and classifying sustainability courses within their curricula. Now, sustainability is located very differently across the schools that we'll show you, which results in differing interpretations of sustainability from the student perspective.
And apologies that took me so long. My meeting controls disappeared, so I couldn't unmute for a second. I was, what? But let's just jump right in. So we wanted to kind of help demonstrate, as Harrison was mentioning, some of the confusioning. Well, confusioning is not a word. Some of the confusion that was there while we were researching. So we figured no better way to then take you through a couple websites. So the first website we wanted to show was, this is Keene State's Sustainability Studies Program website. And the first thing that you'll see is this big blurb of values, keywords, and a description of what this program entails and the skills that you will learn. Super important as a prospective student to be able to read about what I'm going to be doing. What are some of the skills that I'll be able to learn? And as you continue down through the program website, you see, okay, here are my options for other things to add on. Here's who I can contact to learn more, but that's not my favorite thing. My favorite thing on this example is the career opportunities and skills that you'll learn section. Right here, you can see concretely what steps there will be, what options there will be for you once you graduate with this degree. It's as simple as that. They show you exactly not only what you will be doing in school, what you'll be learning, what you'll be valuing, but how you can apply it after. And that's something that's super important.
So another awesome example that we found that's being pulled up right here is the University of Florida. The University of Florida was great at explicitly enumerating just what sustainability looks like as a program and as courses for students. So you can see that the school does offer explicitly a sustainability studies major. And within the description, the courses are listed and categorized by the different disciplinary groups that they might fall within, which is extremely important to a discipline as inherently interdisciplinary in nature as sustainability. So you can see that these courses are classified by whether they fall within the humanities, the natural sciences, and the social sciences. So students can truly locate where those courses fall amongst those categories. And then they also give a description of the cluster courses that combine these different disciplines. So it's very clear just how specific and also how integrated these courses are within the program. And U of F is a great example and like specifically enumerating that. So the career path is clear and the explicit sustainability content that a student will learn is also clear, making this a great example.
Another great example is Chandler Gilbert Community College. So right away, again, just like Keene State, you have a blurb right here telling you about what is your degree going to be like. And something, I don't want to make everybody read this whole big blurb, so I'll just draw your attention right here. This is huge because right in the very beginning of their program website, you're seeing that, yes, you are taking the first 2 years here, but it's of a 4-year curriculum. And that should tell you as a prospective student that they're going to have some pathways. And that's, a little bit of foreshadowing for the rest of the program page. But you see here, you have all of the necessary administrative details for your program. You can scroll through, I feel bad saying it, but you can scroll through and see what you'll learn, as well as some concrete next steps for careers. You can see you get salaries, wages, all of those things, as well as just what are some jobs you can work after college. Now, this is really cool, but not quite my favorite thing. My favorite thing is right here, this pathways map option. I ended up looking at 50 schools, and Chandler Gilbert was the only college that I saw that did anything quite like this. And it was their pathway maps options. They have concrete pathways to continuing your education once you're done here. So, I'm not going to read them all, but you can see that the partnerships are with Arizona schools, and we have some Arizona representation here. So hopefully we can learn a little bit more about what that's like concretely. But it's so cool as a prospective student to see, what am I going to learn? What am I going to value? What is this program like? And what are the next steps for me? All really accessible within one page.
So another interesting approach that we found was the Illinois Institute of Technology. Now, being an Institute of Technology and very characteristic, of such, their approach to sustainability was quite more analytical and more administrative. So it does offer sustainability focused programs, but really only within the parameters of an Institute of Technology, which I found interesting. So as you can see, it does offer sustainability specialization, but only as complementary to a business degree, which makes it more inherently administrative and strategic in nature, though it does offer courses that are important to understanding sustainability and being a sustainable thinker and change agent. So at the school, the options are clearly made available, yet it does demonstrate that clear interdisciplinarity within the program and certificate provisions. There's a lot of analytics, business, and management involved, and not quite so much a generalized sustainability degree or career path. And being as such, the Illinois Institute of Tech isn't quite a benchmark sustainability program, but it does still abundantly help for relevant students with relevant interests in that interdisciplinary approach that the school provides. Now, one last example that we're going to show you here is Dickinson. Now, Dickinson has an extremely commendable value of sustainability, and particularly on-campus sustainability initiatives. There's a clear commitment to sustainability here, and there's a clear integration of that sustainability commitment within the curricula. Despite the 100% sustainability across the curriculum, it is still left unclear whether that explicit sustainability degree program is offered. So what's clear is that the school teaches sustainability skills, but what's left unclear is how these skills translate to an explicit career path or a sustainability job, which is important for prospective students to understand. So the school values sustainability on campus, offers a variety of sustainability-centered courses among several disciplines. However, if I were to pursue a sustainability career at Dickinson, it's unclear what the culmination of my education and work would look like. There doesn't seem to be an explicit degree program offered. So while it's clear that sustainability is integral to the education, there are still many questions to be asked as to how that education does thoroughly prepare students for a job within the field of sustainability post-graduation.
So we've gotten to the point in our presentation where we'd like to ask everybody to either follow this link or scan this QR code just to take a quick 3-minute survey. So the things that you'll be asked are some future steps. What would you like to see?
Alrighty, so thank you so much for your input. Again, I just want to reiterate that all of the input is important and valuable, and we really greatly appreciate it in continuing our research here. So in extending this conversation to you all, I just want to reiterate that from the perspective of a student, we found an altogether lack of shared values across the schools, no agreement in core competencies, no clear direction towards a sustainability career, which makes the choice of how an education should be pursued much more difficult and unclear for these students. And that is not desirable neither for students nor for the schools. So a decision as large as a college decision should not be a guessing game. Students should have full confidence in a school's ability to nourish their values and their interests, whether that be through the courses offered, through the programs, or through external opportunities on campus and outside of campus.
So just what we were thinking about sharing was some things that we thought could be good next steps. So pretty obviously right away is just more schools. And we wanted to really be specific with how we chose which schools, because we want to make sure that we include more schools in the US, but also schools internationally. Sustainability is not just a US-based thing or entity. Another next step that could be really helpful could be some form of accreditation for sustainability degree programs. And we wanted to, one of the big things that we wanted to ask was to ask you all, what do you think the next steps should be? Were there any areas of our research that you thought was a lot more interesting than other areas, less interesting, anything?
All right, thank you both so much for your presentation. I hope everyone can add some virtual applause here. We thank you so much for your time. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and we can continue on with this discussion.